Okay, let me just like quickly post it online. We're live, and here we are live, and okay. Okay. Okay, Mr. Chidi, thank you very much for being here. Thank you so much. Thank you so very much. Okay, so we're going to start right away. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Do Entrepreneurship. Do Entrepreneurship is a live webinar where we invite top entrepreneurs in the world to share their experiences and talk about subtopics that will inform and teach entrepreneurs who want to build successful businesses. So in today's webinar, we have as our speaker, Chidi Nwaogu. He's a serial entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Publiseer. He's also a co-founder of Savvy. And then he's also a mentor in so many organizations, including Founder Institute, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network, the Anzisha Prize, Teach for Nigeria, so many organizations. And then for today, he will be talking on the team how to do entrepreneurship and win. And that will be while we listen. He will also answer certain questions that will add value to everyone here who is watching this webinar and the people that will watch the webinar later. So, Mr. Chidi, thank you very much for being here. Welcome. Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Can you
So
hear
what's the
me?
format? Yeah, I can hear you. So what's the format? Do you ask questions and
Okay, so basically how it works is I have like lots of questions, not so much, just like 10 questions actually, but we have like different categories. Let me just start like this. So I would like to say that I'm a very big fan. Yeah, I would like to say that I'm a very big fan. I have learned so much from your latest to entrepreneurs, and I'm so thankful that you have been able to find time out of your very busy schedule to teach us how to do entrepreneurship and win. And so this night I have like put together some topics that I would like you to talk about. And then I would like us to start with ideation. So let me just run through all the different things that we're going to talk about tonight, like things I would like you to talk about to our listeners and to the entrepreneurs that are currently like watching this webinar right now and the ones that will watch this webinar later. So I have here the very first one is ideation. And then I also have market research, I have motivation, I have fundraising, I have grants, I have handling failure, I also have customer retention. These are like subtopics, kind of. And then I also have a team, personal brand image, and then like your final advice to the entrepreneurs currently watching this webinar. So let's start with the very first one. And the very first one is on ideation. So the first question is more like this: how can an entrepreneur come up with a great business idea, and where exactly do business ideas come from? So at some point, I think maybe a few years ago, I learned that there is a place called the World of Forms. Yes, and Nikolai Tesla, who happens to be one of the foremost engineers the world has ever seen, he's said to have gotten so many of his ideas from some sort of imaginary place called the World of Forms, where everything is like really perfect. So he like goes there. I don't know how he goes there. So he goes there and then picks ideas and comes back to the world and just like builds it. So here for entrepreneurs, we would like to know how do entrepreneurs come up with an idea? How can they come up with like a very good business ideas? Where do ideas come from? And also, can you share your journey of how you came up with your first business idea? Yeah.
yeah? So I ideas are usually better from needs. It could be your own need. It could be someone else's need. So, for example, you go to the bank and you discover that the transfer took so long to happen. Maybe it took 2 weeks, and you want something faster. you've actually come up with an idea, to build something that can actually make transfers happen faster. It could be something that you watched your own family member experience. Maybe your mom was a small trader. She owned a small business, and it was so difficult for her to get goods to sell. She had to go to multiple places, negotiate and stuff. And then you just thought of, why can't it be so easy? She can order for things with just a click, and it comes to her, at market value. So that's an idea as well. So ideas are literally born out from your own experience, and when you feel like this is less than ideal, it could be that you encountered something that you think is too expensive, and so you think that there should be something more affordable. It could be that it wasn't accurate, and you're thinking of making something more accurate. It could be time consuming. Literally, there are a lot of ways to get ideas, and Africa is the best place to get ideas because, permit me to say, a lot of things don't work. And when you're in a place where a lot of things don't work, you definitely want a lot of things to work. And the best way is not to complain about them and say these things don't work, and say the government is shitty. Pardon my French. But the easiest way is to say, how can I solve this problem? Not only for yourself, but for other people. Now, solving the problem for yourself, is more of a way to validate the idea or the solution. Is it feasible? Does it work? And then maybe you can solve the problem for close family members. Oh, it's working. And then you commercialize the solution to also solve problems for other people, and in the same in the same breath make money out of it. Because at the end of the day, if you don't make money out of it, it's not a business, and it's not self-sustaining. So ideas are literally born out of needs, your own need or someone else's need, that you validated that it actually exists, not only in your own space or in that person's space, but in multiple people's space. A lot of people are experiencing the same, having the same experience, and they would want to change, and you think you can be that change, and you can make money out of the entire process. It's as simple as that.
You're trying to say that ideas basically come from needs. That means it could be personal needs, or maybe the needs of the people, within our own personal space. That's what you mean.
Yeah, take for instance, Irogo TV, right? I think they came to Nigeria before Netflix. And Jason came to Nigeria, and his mom said, Jason, can you get, when you're coming back to the UK, can you get some Nigerian movies for me? And he just kept wondering why it had to be tedious for his mom to watch Nigerian movies in the UK. He has to take a flight all the way to Nigeria, buy them in CDs, and and take a flight back to the UK to be able to, for his mom in the UK, to watch local content in Africa. So he thought about, why don't I create a platform where people can actually access African movie content without having to visit Africa, and do that for a subscription fee, and it worked. So it's literally from his experience. That's the best way, and also you can experience something, and then people are not really experiencing it. So it's not a prevalent need, it's just your own personal need. And if you create a solution out of that, you would realize that nobody's going to use it because it's just a unique need for you. So when I say it's born out of needs, I'm not talking about your own need. You can experience it and say, oh, I need this, but then also validate if other people needs it. What's the market? Does the market need this? How many people need this, and how many people are willing to pay to have it? And that's when you have and that's how you have an idea.
Great. So, actually, there are some instances where an entrepreneur, maybe he's looking for an idea, or maybe just a regular human being is looking for a business idea, and then he's like really, really looking forward to coming up with something that is like extraordinary. So, from my own perspective, really, I want to put it out as a question to you. Is it really like is it really necessary for an entrepreneur to want to establish a business idea that is like super unique, or is it just okay to maybe look at a particular business idea that is succeeding in another territory? Maybe there is a particular business that is succeeding in the UK or succeeding in the US or anywhere else in the world, and then you now discover that, okay, I can actually pick up something like that and replicate it. Is it necessary that you have to make it something totally unique, or you can just copy and paste and do? Okay.
It has to be unique to your own region. I've seen a lot of things have work outside of Africa, and when brought to Africa, it broke down. There was one called Our Bike, I think, yeah, and they tried to create this ride, bicycle sharing ecosystem for mostly students. And I remember the last time I went to a university campus where their bikes were. I couldn't find anyone anymore. I remember the last time I went there some years ago, there were loads of bikes there and people were using it. But over the time, people stopped using it. Some of them got stolen, some of them got damaged, some of them got torn into pieces, just to get some certain things out of it. It didn't work because, in Africa, you need extra layers of security if you're doing these kinds of things. But, in other Western countries like, the US and the UK, you can, literally people, the security is not that necessary. Yeah, you should put some security, but you should put some extra level, layers of security if you bring it into Africa. And just imagine when you try to replicate such thing that happens outside of the world, outside of Africa, and you bring it to Africa, it might break down because the way we think or the way things are being done here is different from the way it's being done over there. And for example, if you've used your Uber app and you leave Nigeria and you go to a country like maybe the UK or maybe Germany or any country, you discover that the Uber app adjusts to your region. There's certain services that you get in certain countries you don't get in Nigeria. For example, if you use Uber in Kenya, you realize that there's scooter option. You can hail a scooter, but you can't hail that in Nigeria. And there are certain reasons why. It could be that the government, banned, is banned, or it could be that there is literally no scooter lifestyle, or culture in Nigeria. So you realize that the Uber app, changes based on your location. For example, in Germany, the Uber app, I think I'm sure it's syncs with other yellow cabs, where you can also hail yellow cabs in a certain way. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, it's quite different from the one I experienced in Nigeria, also different from the one I experienced in Ghana. You realize that when Uber keeps moving to different countries, it tries to understand the transportation needs in that country and how people are currently using transportation and try to model its own solution around it, because that's the easiest way to do things. We have laggards, people that slowly adjust to change. And when you try to change or disrupt their lifestyle in a blink, it's very difficult because to change people's social behavior is almost impossible. And if you do it eventually, it takes a long period of time for that to happen. So it's best to build a solution around people's needs, or around the way people currently do things. And if you want to know that your idea makes sense, the question you should ask is, how are people currently doing it? So for example, you have an idea for something amazing, and you like, for example, food stamps work in the US, but it doesn't exist in Nigeria. And imagine trying to bring food stamps to Nigeria. It's almost difficult, right? Because the system in processing and redeeming food stamps might be quite, you need to create that infrastructure first before you can actually bring that kind of service. So before you develop an idea, you have to ask yourself, what are the infrastructures in my country that fosters this or that makes this easier for people to adopt? And also, you need to also ask yourself, how are people currently doing it? Have people found a way around this? If people have not found a way around it, it means it's not a need. Because if it's a need, I will find a way to do it. It might not be efficient, it might not be accurate, it might be time consuming, it might cost a lot, but I'll find a way to actually bend around the problem. And if your solution, there's no alternative to doing it, then it doesn't exist. That idea is completely, let's put it, fluke or fantasy. Because if it really exists, people will find a way. For example, ChatGPT, people, write cover letters by paying people to write their cover letters, But now you can literally write your cover letter for a job without having to pay someone, So how do people currently do things, That's will make you know understand. Okay, if people are currently solving this problem, but in a very unideal situation, then and your solution is bringing a more ideal situation in the system, then you have an idea. But if there's no way in which people are currently solving it, then that idea only exists in your head. If you try to bring it out, you would actually create a beautiful product that nobody will ever use.
Very true. Very true. Thank you very much for that. So, the question of where do ideas come from, the whole concept around ideation, brings us to another concept that I would like you to talk about, which is like market research. So many entrepreneurs, including myself, in my early stage of my the early days of my career as an entrepreneur, I was always like driven with just like, whenever I come up with an amazing idea, I'm like super excited and I just want to build it. I don't go ahead to start thinking about things like how many people have this problem, how many people are willing to pay for this problem, like for the solution to this problem, right? Just like you said earlier. So that brings us to the concept of market research. So I have like the question basically is this: what processes do you follow? All right, what processes do you follow for market research and validation of your business idea? And another question is, how do you like determine the exact target audience for your business?
Yeah, so market research, people often think that market research is usually just to validate the problem and understand if it exists, But also, market research is to understand uh, the ideal target customers that would use your product once it's out. Because you can't get customers if you don't know where to find them. So, for example, you're looking for content creators and you go to platforms like the best, or you're looking for video content creators and you go to platforms like LinkedIn. Usually LinkedIn is not it's not for video content creators. Ideally, it's you can go to platforms like TikTok and Instagram. Now, if you're building a product where you're looking for video content creators and you're going to Facebook, you're going to LinkedIn, you're literally looking for the right people but in the wrong places. So market research tells you exactly where to find your target customers. And when you're trying to validate the problem, um, you should understand the people that are going to use your product in a very, very invasive method. And people say, why do I use the word invasive? For example, uh, if you go to a coffee shop and you want to understand what coffee lovers do or what they love, what coffee lovers, what they appreciate, it's very wrong if you give them a survey form and tell them to fill, because I've done that before. And from experience and from other research, I realized that people fill survey forms not the way they will actually use things or do things, but they fill survey forms thinking that you're giving them a test and that you are looking for a certain answer. And so they feel it based on on what they think that you want to hear, or what they think is the right question, is the right answer. And survey forms are actually created. You create a survey to actually understand how people relate to things or what they think about things. But what people do is different from what people say they do, right? So the easiest way to understand people is to shadow them. You need to understand how a day in their life look like. So if you want to know what coffee lovers do, don't ask them, watch them. You go to a coffee shop and you buy a coffee and sit and watch people come in and watch what brand of coffee or what type of coffee they usually order, how long it takes for them to get their coffee, and what you think is very unideal in the entire situation of them coming in and out. And then you can create something that actually solves that problem. But the moment you start asking them questions, they start giving you things that really don't make sense, or it makes sense on paper. But when you try to release the product based on what you got from the survey, you create a product that would solve an ideal problem in an ideal situation where in reality, it's not ideal. Things are not ideal. And so you realize that so many things don't work. And another thing to do if you want to get the right information from market research, rather than going online and actually checking out information, because that's an ideal way to check to get data. But you can sit one-on-one and speak to people. Now, sitting one-on-one, don't make it scripted, because when you make it scripted, you already have a bias in your head, of what question to ask them. Think about the first question, and then let whatever they say direct the decide where the conversation goes. And do not go into market, go into market research with an idea in your head, because in most cases, ideally, the problem you have in your head and the solution that you're thinking about creating com- completely changes after the market research. And if you go into market research and the problem does not change, the idea does not change, the solution doesn't change, that means you went into market research with a bias. You had a certain thing already in your head, and you were going out there just to validate if that thing is true. When in reality, you shouldn't be validating if that thing is true. You should just go out there, speak to your target customers, and understand what problem they're experiencing, and see if maybe it's going to lead you back to your initial idea, or if it's going to lead you elsewhere. Because in reality, it leads you elsewhere, not back to your original idea. And if you go back to your original idea and nothing changes, it's either you're talking to the wrong people, or you're asking them questions that will validate what you're trying to build, and you're not asking them the right questions, or you got there with a bias. Because usually market research changes your entire perception. It's like opens up your understanding of the problem, and if done properly, it should change the initial scope of the problem you're solving. It should change the idea that you have. It can change it completely, like a completely different idea, or it can build upon the idea that you have. Because when I started Publisher, I thought that the problem was that content creators in Africa found the existing aggregators too expensive for them to use. But with time, I realized the problem was not even that. That was one of it, but the problem was much bigger than that. And I realized that there are a lot that has to do with copyright infringement. A lot that had to do with payment. A lot that had to do with getting to African stores as well. A lot that had to do with sales performance reports. These were things that I didn't know that existed. But because I got into the market research, I went into the market research process not thinking of the initial idea, but just trying to think of the pain points of content creators in Africa and see how I can solve it. I realized that there was even much more I could do, and that the initial idea I had was just maybe like a little subset, of the full idea. Yeah.
Okay, so I think while you were like trying to elaborate on the topic, right? I just remembered. I think it was when you said that sometimes when trying to do market research, entrepreneurs tend to talk with the wrong people, right? So I just remembered the idea of mom test. I think the mom's test, where let's say an entrepreneur wants to validate some of, let's say, his or her business model or business idea, and then he goes ahead to ask maybe their close ones, maybe dad or mom, specifically mom. And then, mom, what do you think? Is this idea really amazing? Every mom will always say, yes, their idea is amazing. So yeah, so makes a whole lot of sense. That means entrepreneurs are not supposed to, when they are trying to validate their ideas, from what you've said, talk to they shouldn't talk to really really close people, people that are going to end up seeing their question as a direct question. That means they tend to give them like direct answers that, okay, yes, your idea is amazing, yes, you can make money out of it and all that. Okay, thank you very much for that too. And then we can like move on to the next one here. Okay, so I think I will just skip motivation for now. Let's talk about fundraising. Yeah, so fundraising, then we talk about grants, then we go back to motivation. So in your career and experience as an entrepreneur, I have personally checked you out, and then I've discovered that you've like won a whole lot of grants. And grants and investment happen to be one of the things that has the capacity to motivate an entrepreneur like to move forward. I think the very first thing that can motivate an entrepreneur to keep building is when they are paid for a particular product that they're selling, or paid for a particular service that they're offering. Then other things that motivates them is grants, winning grants, and raising money, getting investment. How did you go about applying for grants and winning lots of grants? How did you go about them?
Well, honestly, getting funding, if it's grants, non-equity or equity or debt, uh, you literally have to explain to the organization you're trying to apply for this funding. You need to explain to them two things. It's either your path to profitability or your path to an exit. In whichever case, they need to understand where you're going to, and if you understand this route very well. Nobody wants to fund your idea, so it's except you're Elon Musk or you have a very amazing past record, and you can just simply tell them, hey, I want to build this. I have done this, I've done that in the past, and so your track record speaks for you. But if you don't have any track record, you literally have to do something first. You don't come with an idea to whoever you're trying to get funding from. Although I've been able to exit two companies in the past, I didn't use that when I was trying to apply for funding. I tried to use the path to profitability in order to get this funding from them, because I wouldn't want to I'm putting myself in the shoe of an investor. I wouldn't want to put, let's say, $50,000 into your business or into your project when I believe that you would need actually $500,000 before you're able to become sustainable. That means that my money is just 10% of what you really need to stand on your own. So whatever funding you're actually looking for, you have to explain that if you're given this funding, you will literally need nobody else to be able to stand on your own. That way they understand that the impact on your business is direct and it's instant. But when they understand that, hey, you're trying to raise $50,000 from us, but what your project is going to need to be able to become self-sustaining is $500,000. You're literally not going to get that money, except you're able to tell them how you're going to get the extra $450,000, or if you've gotten the money already, right? And maybe you're looking for someone to match that funding. And also, you need to explain to them, as much as the problem statement is very good, and they want to understand that you have a very local sense of the problem. You have to have a very unique solution, and that's when you said, can you go, to a Western country and bring back a solution to Africa and see if it works? It's not unique. It's just the same thing. What you just changed was you changed the geography, the region, and what makes you stand out. It's not a bold idea. It's not a big idea. It's just literally the same idea that you're switching into a different, or you're trying to create or localize for a different audience. So you have to make sure that whatever you're doing it differently. So when we started, for example, let me put Savvy, and ask myself a question: what makes us different, from every other training programs? Why is this different? And I realized that when I go through a lot of accelerator programs and stuff, it's a little bit abstract in such a way that some of them were not even designed for African entrepreneurs. They're designed for more, Western entrepreneurs. And the ideas that they gave, for example, when I was part of the Western Wealth Fellowship, I don't know how it's been pronounced, but it happened in Germany. My mentor was a German, and although he gave me useful information, I don't think he understood what it felt like or what it took to run a business in a very struggling or an emerging economy like Nigeria's, right? And so he gave me ideas that were a little bit not radical enough to survive in the African space. And so I said to myself, the kinds of the entrepreneurs what I'm going to bring for the Savvy program should be local entrepreneurs, people who have built businesses in this rough climate, people who understand what it feels like to build businesses, and so that they can literally tell you what they experienced. But not only that, because people think that educated people only communicate in English, but in reality, a lot of people are educated, but they don't speak English, right? Or they don't speak English that often. And I know a lot of people that don't speak English that often, or easily understand things when it's not spoken in English, because English is not their first language, right? And a lot of people in Africa, English is not their first language. And so I said, Savvy shouldn't be built upon the English language. We should have mentors who can mentor their entrepreneurs in their own native languages. And the Savvy program should be available in multiple languages other than English. It's very beautiful if someone can learn how to build a business in Hausa, or learn how to build businesses in Igbo language, a language that they really connect well with, and speak to their mentors in a language that really connects with them. That way, they really understand and they really appreciate the content of the language. And that was the unique part of Savvy. Uh, Apart from the fact that the program was developed by people who understood what it is to build businesses in the local climate, it's offered this training and mentorship in localized languages. And so when I communicated that with my funders, they saw a difference, from what I had and from what other people had. Also, you also need to explain to them that we all know that you're trying to build an amazing business, but we know that there's no successful man that is truly self-made. Along the line, you met amazing people that you worked with and that, got you to where you are. So there's literally no person that's an island, right? And so you need to explain to them how you're currently working with competitions if possible. But let's put it in this way, how you're currently working with similar organizations to create an exponential or to scale your impact exponentially, right? And so I also explained to them how I've been able to work with other organizations like Because International, KEPSA, and how these partnerships have been able to scale our impact in a way that we on our own would not be able to achieve it on our own. So because when you're able to do that, it shows that you're collaborative in your efforts, and that to actually achieve the vision that you have in mind, you don't necessarily have to put so much of your blood and sweat and tears into it. You can literally work with people that can also help you along the journey. And another important thing is you have to be the right person to do this. Because you can be literally doing the right thing, but you don't even know jack about what you're doing. For example, I don't have any prior experience in the healthcare system. How will I create a healthcare startup? It makes no sense, because what exactly am I bringing? What experience am I bringing into this ecosystem when I do not know anything about it? I don't have any connection with relevant stakeholders. This is literally not my field. And so you have to prove to the donors, or the investors, that, hey, I'm the right person. Now, proving to them that you're the right person means that they understand that your solution might not work. You might get to a point where you're going to have to pivot, or you might have to shut down and start something else. But if they believe in you, they would readily put their money on you, because they understand that whatever the situation or whatever the result is, you will find a way to come back. So you need to explain to them that you're the right person, that you persevere, you're persistent. I explained to them that I've been able to achieve so much on my own, and that with their funding, if this was able, I achieved A, B, C, and D on my own, with my own sweat, my own time, my own personal resources. And if they can give me B, E, F, and G, I'll be able to achieve J, K, L, right? That's how you do it. Because if you're not the right person, you don't have the right, you don't have any track record. You don't even have to have a track record. It could be as little as you were able to start a business while you're in college and you were able to sell it to students in school. It can be as little as that. It could be as little as that you experienced a problem along the way while learning. Maybe you're not able to pay your tuition and found a way to do business in school to raise money for your tuition. It shows that you're a resourceful person, and that even if in times of challenges, you would find a way around it and pass through. So it's just to show what type of person you are. Do you give up when things get hard, or does that motivate you to even try harder? Three things pop up, when you're trying to raise funding. I think that's how I'm going to end it. One is that, you have to do I. Why you? Why is it you? Why have you chosen to do this? Why not any other thing? Why did you decide to choose this? That generates the empathy for we. That's the second component. You need to, as long as you've told them what made you decide to do this and dedicate your life to doing it, why should they be part of that journey with you? Why should they even care about what you're doing? So you need to, the we component creates that empathy for them to say to themselves, I love what he's doing, or I love what she's doing. I want to be part of this. And then the last component is literally, why now? Because literally some problems we're solving are not problems that should be solved yet, because there are more pressing problems that have to be solved first. So the question is, why now? Why should I give you my money now? Why should I invest in this now? If I don't invest in this now, what happens? Does the world stop? If it doesn't stop, hey, we are still fine. But if you can explain to them, if you don't invest in me now, if you don't invest in this project right now, the consequences are very severe, that we literally, we can't find a way back, right? So this is the reason why I want it now, why I want your funding now, because this is the right time to solve this problem. If you're able to do those three things, literally you're getting your money.
Great, great. That was really amazing, really, because um, there is this grant I have been trying to check out, and uh, from the discussion that you've made this evening, I have been able to figure out something that I need to go back and add to the application, really. And it has a lot to do with the language part. That was like super unique. And I really hope that everyone else that is currently, listening to this can learn so much, because just in this very short time, I have just discovered a reason why I I'm actually really thankful, because I was supposed to submit the application yesterday, but I didn't. And now that I've heard this, I have to go back and edit it before submitting. Thank you so much for this. Thank you so much.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
so yes, so we've talked about ideation, we've talked about market research, we've talked about both fundraising and grants simultaneously. And then, so I think here we can talk about handling failure before we move to motivation. So I know definitely that as an entrepreneur, it has not always been super rosy for you. You've had some instances, or lots of instances, where you really wanted to throw in the towel, and but you didn't, because if you had thrown in the towel, we wouldn't be talking with you right now, right? So the question now is, can you share any lessons that you learned from failures in your entrepreneurial journey, and how did you overcome those failures and move forward? Yes.
Yeah, so I think I've shared a lot of my failure stories on social media. And the reason why I do that is because we are very quick at sharing the success part. And we literally put people in unnecessary pressure that you have to get it right the first time. And I remember telling my twin brother that, why do I have to do things twice when people had to just do it once? And so I felt at the point in my life that it was a curse, because I felt like to get things done properly, I had to do it more than once. And so I adopted well, I call it two ways of looking at things. One is for the failure part, and one is for the success part. The failure part is I never used the word I tried. Now, why is because I remember an uncle of mine sometime in 2000 and I think two, he said that the phrase "I tried" is not English. It simply means that you should never tell someone that you tried, because it doesn't really matter. They don't really care. What people care is for you to say "I did." I was able to do. I did this. I did that. Not I tried to do this. And so I never tell people what I've tried to do. I never say I tried. I always keep doing it, doing it. There's so many things that I've done over 4 times before I got it right. Um, a good example was the Western World Fellowship. I applied for it in 2018, the winter cohort. And I got an email saying that I wasn't even given the opportunity um, to participate in the interviews. And I felt really bad. But then it made me understand that maybe it's not a redirection. It's just a way for me to regroup. So I said to myself, okay, what do I have to do to make myself better or a stronger candidate next time? I focused on improving my product. I focused on traction. And then I applied again 6 months later, and I got in. It just simply explained to me that the problem is not really with you. Sometimes we feel like when people say no to us, it's just more of an assault on our own personal, on our person. When in reality, it's nothing personal. It's just that we are not there yet. And they really would want to say yes to us, but because they feel like, hey, a lot of people are also looking for that opportunity, that are way more qualified, or that have put more homework or more hard work into what they are doing, and they need to give them a seat at the table first. I know someone that had to apply to Acumen Fellowship 4 times before they got in, and I had to apply to Acumen Fellowship just once. Now, the truth is that we both are Acumen Fellows right now. Nobody cares if he had to apply 4 times. What people care is what happened that eventually. He's an Acumen Fellow, I'm an Acumen Fellow. I applied once, he applied 4 times, nobody cares. Because if you look at the result, it's just the exact same thing. So when you fail, it's not literally telling you that it's over. It's usually 1 or 2 lessons you're trying to learn. Like yesterday, I expressed something that was very devastating, but I was able to learn 1 or 2 things from it. In fact, multiple things I learned from it. And those learnings are following me along, the way. And I believe that it's going to help me change the way I do things in the nearest future. So when you fail, it's not literally. It's just a. It's not a redirection. So people feel like, oh, it's telling you not to do this anymore. No, you can literally have to do it again. But it's just telling you that you need to regroup, you need to reorganize yourself, you need to re-strategize. You need to, tweak some things up, and then come back stronger. And there's this saying that failure is success once you learn from it. So this means that when you fail and you don't learn anything from it, you literally failed. It's a blatant failure. But when you can say to yourself, okay, this is something I did wrong, this is something I shouldn't do anymore in my life, then you actually succeeded because you've learned something. And lessons are literally successes because you're going to use that next time when you're trying to do something again. And that's on the part of failure. On the part of success, I never dwell on my success. So I'm this kind of person that I can do something today. I have a plan. I would accomplish it today. And then the very next minute, I'm talking about what I want to do next. You'd find that about me. I am never, ever, I never dwell on the fact that I did something. I can celebrate instantaneously. I might not even celebrate. I might be like, okay, yeah, we did it. What's next? I'm always thinking about what's the next thing to do. So I always have projects. I always have things that I want to do. It's always things in my timeline that I want to achieve. Once I take it down, I look at the bigger picture and say, okay, what's next? What can I conquer next? So, because the reason why I never dwell on my successes, I do not want to be the person that introduces myself to people when I meet them. When you meet someone, you say, hey, I'm Chidi and I do this. It's very tiring. Why don't you literally say hi and the person say, yeah, I know you, you're Chidi. It's easier that way. You can raise funding that way easily because people trust you. I remember when I was trying to raise funding from an angel investor, the moment I walked into his office, he was with 2 other investors. And I walked in, he looked at me and said, I know you. You have a twin brother? I said, yeah. You guys created a social network called Lagbook? I said, yeah. He said, okay. Speak to me. Tell me, what are you building? And I told him about it. That night, he called me and said, hey, can you meet me at my home in Ikuyi? I'd like to have a dinner, with your twin, you and your twin. And he said that the reason why I want to fund you guys is not because I really trust your idea. It's because I understand that you guys are resourceful people. I've watched what you guys did when you were 19. If you can do that when you're 19, I can imagine what you can do 10 years later. And so he trusted us. It's that trust, this track record. I didn't have to introduce myself when I met him. And so when you are the kind of person I always think about success, when you succeed, you celebrate, but you're thinking about the next thing, you're going to be literally the person that never have to introduce yourself when you meet people because people already know you. Your name can literally go ahead of you. And I want to be that person, I don't want to be that person that says, hey, do you remember me? I created a social network Lagbook when I was at the University of Lagos. That happened about some 10 years ago. Who cares? Nobody cares about what you did many years ago. They care about what are you doing now? What's the next thing? What are you building? And that's why I'm always grinding. I'm always working hard. And that's the way I interact with success. I don't see it as a one-time thing. I see it as a continuous effort. You have to keep doing it all your life. We never rest as human beings. We always thinking about what next to do. Even when we retire, we never truly retire. It's either we are working with somebody else. It's either when you retire, you have a lot of money, so you put the money into somebody else, and so you're literally still working, but not physically. But you're making your money work for you, so you're still working one way or the other. You still call and say, hi, how you using my money? Can you tell me, what you've done so far? And so you're still literally trying to multiply what you've built. And we're always, in the state of multiplication. We're always thinking of how we can grow, not in linear fashions, but exponential fashion. And so if you look at success as not a one-time thing, you're literally going to be very successful, uber successful with time. Yeah.
Great, great. I like the whole concept of um, working so hard just because you don't want to ever introduce yourself again. It makes a whole lot of sense. It does. It does. Thank you very much. So the next one we're gonna talk about. We don't have a lot of things to talk about again. We just have we're gonna talk about customer retention, team, personal brand image, and the final thing you want to say to the audience. But before we go on to that, would like you to talk about motivation. So can you share some tips for staying motivated during tough times? We know that so many people that go about with their whole identity as motivational speaker. A lot of people don't really like the whole motivation thing, but personally as an entrepreneur, right, I listen to lots of motivation, right, because it somehow has ways of inspiring me and picking me out of like some very low times. So I would like to know how you stay motivated personally, like what really motivates you.
Yeah, I think what motivates me is that as much as I try to ask myself what's next, I simultaneously I try to remind myself of what I have or what I've done. You feel this urge to keep doing more when you feel good about yourself. But the moment you feel bad about yourself and you feel like you're not anything, you can't do anything, you literally have defeated yourself, because they say success starts in the head, right? And that the success you experience is not the first success. The first one happened in your head. And so if you are the kind of person that you always focus on what you don't have or what you cannot do, you can never achieve anything. So as you're working towards achieving or trying to get the life that you want, the easiest way to stay motivated is to constantly remind yourself how lucky you are to be yourself. Focus on what you have, what you've been able to do, and look at the journey that you've had so far. Because yeah, we know that the journey is very long, but if you do not look at the journey to be covered, you also look at the journey that where you're coming from. You realize that you've done so much. That gives you the motivation to say, if I can do this, then I can do even more. So the easiest way to stay motivated is to, one, focus on what you have, focus on what you've done, and let that drive you to do more. And don't look at success as a marathon, you know. Uh, and no, don't look at it as a sprint. Look at it as a marathon, rather. And the most important part is that we do this a lot, and it's very normal for us to be caught up when we don't break our goals, into smaller bits. You want to achieve something. That's what you want to do, and you say, "I want to build the world's biggest." That is very overwhelming when you say things like that. So why don't you just break your goals into smaller bits and pieces? First, I want to do this in the next 1 year. I want to do this in the next 3 years. I want to do this in the next 5 years. I want this in the next 10 years, right? When you break it into a future that you can easily see and which easily grasp, you will try to get there. But when you think that the future is so far from where you are, that can really overwhelm you to want to keep working. So when I always have a to-do list where I write the things that I want to do within the year. I don't write things that I want to do next year. No, because it can be overwhelming when I look at the picture of what I want to achieve. It might be too big for me. So I start breaking it into little pieces. This is what I want to achieve this year, and this is when I want to achieve each of them. Because then it's smaller. I can see a goal that I can easily achieve, and it motivates me to go after them. And I think that's the easiest way to stay motivated. Don't overwhelm yourself with a very big goal that you can literally see, or to envision it is very cloudy. It's very hard. And don't focus on the journey per se. Don't always look at the future. Sometimes it's also good to take a breath and look at the past, look at where you come from, how far you've made it. Let that motivate you, make you feel good about yourself, make you believe in yourself that you can. If you've been able to do this, there's a lot of all of us. we've done so many great things by ourselves, for ourselves. And the most important thing is don't compare your journey with somebody else. So literally, I might be in my day 1,000, and you can be in your day 5, and you're comparing your results with my day 1,000. It's literally insane when you do that to yourself. People you meet, you don't know how long they've done things, how long they've been at it, and you say, oh, they have so much results. Hey, they started way, 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 way before, longer before you did. And when you begin to compare their results with yours, you're setting yourself up for failure, because you become that makes you lose the motivation to work, because you feel like you're not good enough. But in reality, maybe your own day 5 is way, way better than their day 5, and you are doing even much better than they are doing if you compare the time spent on both journeys. And so it's very, very tempting to compare yourself, but it's the number one recipe to the motivation.
Great, great. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have three things left before we end their session. So now the part I would like you to talk about is customer retention. For me, right, when I started out back then, when I was I think it was like 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. I was running a co-working space. It was like my third startup idea. I was running a co-working space in a city in Akwa Ibom State. That's Uyo, Nigeria. And I think the major problem I was trying to solve there was the problem of lack of good hours of electricity for technical talents, like guys that are software engineers, digital marketers, and all that. So at first I started by creating a website which was more like an online directory that could help these technical talents to find co-working spaces nearest to them. Then that didn't really work the very first year. So second year I rented a space, furnished it a little bit, and then I started having like the guys really come to the physical place to work. Then at some point I gave them free Wi-Fi and all. But now in the course of the course of running the business, right, I can remember for that one, I was really, I was used to like reaching out to the customers, always checking up on them. And the ones that don't come around, I like call to ask and all that. But at some point, I lost touch on that particular skill, because when we launched the online marketplace where we connected the talents to businesses that needed their services, when a particular business person hires a talent, right, pays money, hires a talent, I found myself not really keeping in touch with this customer, like the person that hired the talent. And so at some point I discovered that they were no longer like coming back. They were not converted from, first time customers to returning customers. So that brings us to the part that I wanted to talk about, which is like customer retention and how important it is for every entrepreneur. Because according to what we all know somehow, right? It's more expensive to actually get a customer, like to get a new customer, than it is to actually retain one. So can you like talk more about customer retention?
So I would say 3 things about it. A lot of people don't understand, when you promise a customer something, you have to meet that, whatever you promise them, 100%. The moment you promise them A and you give them A divided by 2, literally you've lowered the expectations, or you've lowered the bar, and they wouldn't be back anymore. And a lot of people also said that they would choose to use a certain company over another company if they feel treated well and appreciated. So a lot has to do with customer service. How did you make the customer feel while using your product, or being part of your product, or being part of your service? I will literally, and a lot of people will, pay premium if they get good customer service. Forget about the real service that they get, but the way they were treated, they will always remember it. Because a customer really doesn't care, doesn't really remember what happened when they used the product. They understand, what they really remember is how it made them feel. So if while using your products, they felt like they were not appreciated, they were not given, um, the attention that they deserved, or they would never use it. I remember working using a bank, and then when I walked into the bank one day, it was very difficult for me to withdraw my money, and I said to myself, I was on the line, and I said, when I get to the counter, I'm pulling out every money, because I said to myself, this was not the first time, not the second, not the third. it was always a difficult, always a hassle to take my money, but it was very easy to put it back in. And so I said, I wouldn't go through that. That's the customer service. Obviously, they are banking my money properly. They're doing what they said they're going to do. But the process in which I interact with their service was very shitty. And so I said, I'm not going, and I'm out. So spend a lot of time on customer service, on how you make the customer feel. Also, never ever promise what you cannot give. Because the moment you promise something and you're not able to fulfill it, they're gone. So promise exactly what you know you're capable of doing and that you're going to give them 100%. And there was one I remembered. Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing. I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
Have you eaten today?
Yes, I have. I've had food. Yes.
Did you work out? Did you go to the gym? Did you flex your muscles today?
No, I didn't.
Exactly. So food is a need. Working out is a want. The moment you have to remind the customer that they need something, it's no longer a need. So when you are creating a product, make sure that it's meeting to their needs and not their wants. Or I always tell people, if you're creating a service and it's meeting to people's wants, make sure you target the high end people and you have a lot of money to get to them. But if you understand that you're on a lean budget, you don't have so much money, you don't have a gold mine under your bed, you need to meet their needs. So you do not have to remind them that they need your service. For example, the woman by the roadside who sells food never have to remind the people in her neighborhood to come and buy food. They always show up every day because they need the food. But the guy by the side that runs a gym center can sometimes have to call them and say, hey, I didn't see you today. What happened? Hey, you didn't renew your subscription. What's happened? Because it's a want. And I'm not saying that it's bad to give people what they want. But you only have to do that when you know that you're not running on a lean budget, you have enough money to be able to go after them and chase them for it. But if you understand that you're an entrepreneur, maybe you're a bootstrapper, you're going on a lean budget, you cannot afford to, keep running after them. You cannot afford to keep going after them and reminding them or running advertisement for this. Then you need to run a product or you need to run a service that meets to the needs. You had to write to those people and say, hey, you're not coming to the co-working space. Maybe they found an alternative to your co-working space. It could be that their neighbor owns their neighbor, maybe 2 blocks away, have a solar inverter, and they can just knock and say, hey, can I use your electricity for a bit? Or they, their neighbor left their Wi-Fi, running without password, and so they were able to plug to it, right? These are things that can actually be your competition. It might not have to be another co-working space. It could be anybody that's ready to give them electricity and Wi-Fi at a cheaper cost or a fraction of the cost of what you're giving them. And if you're not able to do that, or you have so many competitions and you're running on a lean budget, it's going to be very difficult. So it's always important. That's why I say whenever you're solving a problem, make sure that the problem is meeting to a needs of people, that people are currently struggling to solve that problem and they can give the world to see that problem solved. If not, it's going to be a problem because, hey, your idea is as great as how much people are willing to pay for it. And if people are not willing to pay for it, or they're not so excited about it, it's going to be a struggle. Yeah.
Great. That's true. That's very true. Okay, so I think this is like the very first time, for real. Let me be really sincere. This is like the very first time I'm getting to really understand the difference between a need and a want. I like the analogy of the gym and then the woman beside the roadside selling food. It makes a whole lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So the last two things is team and personal brand image. So the question here is, straight up, why do you need a great team for your great idea?
Like I think I said it earlier, you're literally you have to be the right people to do something. So it couldn't be just you, it could be a lot of people on your team. And the question is, people invest in people and then not necessarily ideas because, hey, the ideas fail, but the people can regroup and start all over again. And if you're the smartest person in the room, you're literally in the wrong room. I think you already know that, right? So if you have a team and you're the smartest person in that on that team, and you're the founder, you literally have the wrong team. Your team members, you should sit on a round table with your team members and speak to them, and they have conversations that leaves you away out of, that leaves you like high and dry. Like you can't even understand what you're saying. But yeah, they're talking something really sensible, but you just can't understand it because it's just way above you. It goes over your head, right? Because the moment you can do everything that your team member does, or you can do it better than them, you have the wrong team. So you have to hire people that are smarter than you, people that love to do the things that you hate to do, people that are literally passionate about the vision that you have. Because if not, you have to motivate them every day. Motivating them every day is very difficult. So you have to look for people that are so excited about what you're building. Or at least if they're not excited about what you're doing, you need to find people that are naturally self-motivated. I think I heard this, I think way back that Paystack usually hire people that have run a business in the past, no matter how small. And the reason why is that they believe that if you've been able to start something, no matter how small, it shows that you're self-motivated. And that when you join the Paystack family, you will be taking an initiative. You'll be doing things without having been told. So you are like an entrepreneur working for a big organization, more like an entrepreneur, right? You're building, you're like literally working in a big organization, but you're functioning like an entrepreneur will do. You're bringing up new ideas. You're doing things. You're being creative about it. Because if you have to motivate people to do things, especially your team members, you literally will get tired of that. And I think that nobody can emphasize enough on why you should have a great team. And another thing is that I always say is, if you're not there, can your team function on its own? Or do they always need you to do it? And so you should build a team that that, hey, these guys, in my absence, they can do they don't need me. Maybe they only need me to say, hey guys, this is what we're going to do next. This is the vision of the business, this is where we are going to. But literally, that even if you take a vacation, right? For 2 weeks, they wouldn't miss you because they would do things smoothly like you're not there. What's the other question?
Okay, so the other question is about personal brand image. Yeah, because I think on my own side, right, I have been able to like kickstart a whole lot of things, like some projects because of some sort of identity that I have. So I wanted to talk about personal brand image and how it is very important for an entrepreneur to build one. Yes.
Yeah, I am an advocate for personal branding. I always believe that people should have an identity away from their business, because I have got, two of my businesses that were acquired, and I had to sell the brand name to somebody else, And what you have left when you sell your business is your personal brand. Nobody can take that away from you. And your personal brand can literally open doors for you. So for example, let's use Elon Musk, right? He's an ideal example of what personal branding can do. Elon Musk has more followers on social media than any of his companies put together. And he can raise funding to do whatever he wants just because people know him. Literally, he bought Twitter without his own personal money. He literally had to, get the money from different places to buy Twitter. And how could you do that if you don't have personal branding? So personal branding is literally what people say about you when you're not in the room. Do they say good things about you? What do they say about you? And do you realize that personal branding can actually be negative? I always tell people that you don't have to necessarily have a positive personal brand to benefit from it. A good example is Portable. He's a Nigerian musician. I know you know him. And literally, a lot of people have so many things to talk about Portable. He's a nuisance. He's a crazy person, and that. But he's literally thriving on those things, right? He's literally making so much money cashing out on those things. And other people could be the Kardashians, hey, what are they famous for? You can't even remember. You just know that they're famous. But they have a personal branding that literally they can build whatever they want on it. Kylie Jenner literally built $1 billion business, became a billionaire, just based on her name. She was able to, build her I think it's a cosmetic business, literally on the back of the personal brand she's built. So personal branding is very, very important. You can literally raise funding from it. You can get people to trust you. I have people pay me upfront for things that I've not done yet because they believe it, they trust me that, hey, okay, it's Chidi. He's literally going to deliver. He's not going to run away with your money. That's because there's a personal brand. But when people can put a face to your business, like for example, the United Bank for Africa, literally the face of UBA is not Whiskey, it's Tony Elumelu, right? Because he's the guy that everybody knows. People. He has built a personal brand away from the UBA group, and it's that personal brand he's using to build whatever he does. The Tony Elumelu Foundation entrepreneurship program. He has raised funding to fund the next generation of African entrepreneurs, all because of his personal brand. So he literally has a fan page to his name, where he posts about his daily life, tell you about his own struggles as an entrepreneur. And he does that because he understands that personal branding is very, very crucial if you really literally want people to trust in you. And so many people have opened banks with UBA because of Tony. As simple as that. And to a point, he became so popular that a music was, made after him. And so we all know that personal branding is very important. We don't know the limits to what personal brand can do for you. Personally, for me, personal branding has done so much for me. But nobody should tell you what kind of brand you should build. You can build your personal brand from different ways. You can share what you know on social media. You can always ask people for speaking engagements. You could write to bloggers and beg them that you want to, have a column on your blog where you share your thoughts, But the aim is to just put yourself out there and show up, be present. And personal brand literally can do so much for you that your corporate brand can never, fathom about it.
Very true. All right. Thank you very much for giving us your thoughts on that. Thank you so much. So we're actually at the last part, but there are some questions, and I think here we'll just take like the general questions. So if you have any question at all, please just drop it as a comment, and then I will see it here. Then I will push it to the live stream here, so the speaker can address the question. So Bob, I think while you were talking about different things, right? Someone asked a question here. So I'm going to push it to the live stream. So it says here, so here it is. I have a question, Chiefs. When sharing equity between your co-founder and yourself, and you have a very good aligned vision there by coming at 50-50, but I heard when applying for funding, investors don't, let me bring in the other one. Okay, don't invest in them. Why? And then he said this.
It's surprising when you say, so literally 2 founders can have equal shares in the business, as long as you can prove to the investors that you guys get along. The reason why an investor would be scared to invest in a business that 2 people own equal shares is because they are not able to establish how well you guys get along. The first investors that wanted to invest in my twin and I, they made us to take a personality test because they wanted to know if our personality matches. So he took his personality, different rooms. We took different personality tests, and they got the results and compared to know if our temperaments, if they really work together. So, but the best way to explain to an investor that, okay, you guys are have equal shares in the business, but you want to explain to them that, hey, they shouldn't be scared, is what have you guys done together in the past? If you've not done anything together, how long have you known yourselves? It's very important. If you guys have just known for a year, it's very, very, very skeptical because money can really bring out the worst in people. And when they invest, literally you guys are running the business without money involved. So yeah, you guys can literally get along. But when they invest, when they push, they inject investor cash into it, like maybe $500,000, $100,000, $200,000, people become greedy. People start acting differently, and that's the reason why they're scared to put in money in a business where people have the same equity but don't know themselves well enough. So you need to explain to them, hey, I know this person all my life. or I've known this person for 10 years. We've been able to do this together, even if they were not successful businesses. But what have you guys done together? So, for example, whenever I talk about my Chidi and I to investors, I say, hey, this is not our first business. We've done things before in the past. We've done this, we've done that. We've got our business acquired twice. We've literally, they understand that we've worked for years together and that we have the same vision and we can work together. If we've been able to do things twice and become successful with it, then we can do more together. And so, yeah, that's the reason why an investor would not want to invest in you, because they're not sure that you guys can literally get along when money comes in.
Great. Thank you. So there's another question here. I'm pushing it in. So here it is. If you have tarnished your personal brand in any way, can it be rectified? I thought of this because you mentioned that you get paid upfront because people trust you.
Trust me. Now I'm telling you to trust me, and you don't know me. So trust is very difficult. It's very slow to get trust. It's very easy to break it, right? If you've broken your trust maybe you've done something in the past, I would say that you should go and atone for your sins. Try and do things differently, and show people that you changed and you and that you're a better person. But like I said, it's slow to get, so it might not really happen in a twinkle of an eye, and you might not really get it back. This is me telling you that I don't know what level of how you say you tarnished it. I don't know how much you tarnished it, but I know of someone who tarnished his personal brand and is building a very amazing business now, and because he was able to find a way to get people to trust him again by doing even much better than what he has done in the past. He literally messed up in the past, but he came back and better, doing things right, and he's done that for many years now, and people now trust him again. It's just the same way as if you get married, and maybe you cheat on your spouse. It's going to be difficult for you to get the trust, but you can eventually get the trust if you can work towards it, and you intentionally, with intentions, work towards it. So yeah, you can, but it's going to take a while. You broke it, and so do not be too hesitant, or don't be sad when people are not really trusting, and just give them some time to actually get there.
Great. So we have another question here. At what point do you bring in those team members that are better than you? Is it at the ideation or when seeking real funding?
Well, that's a no-brainer. Why would you bring them when you're seeking real funding? It looks like it's eye service. You're doing the right thing, but the wrong time, or because of the wrong, for the wrong reasons. You need to bring them from the start, or whenever you find them. So I won't say from the start, because maybe you didn't find them then. So you need to bring them from the very first beginning. And people will always say, "Hey, it's very difficult for me to get real talent. It's very difficult for me to convince them to join my business because, hey, they can be working for somebody else and they're making much more money." And I say to them, it's going to be very harder. It's going to be much harder for you to convince investors to give you money. It's going to be even much harder for you to convince your customers to give you money for your product than to convince someone to come work with you. So look at it in this way. To convince an amazing person to come work for you for equity should be the first test to see if you can actually convince people that you're really doing the right thing. If you can convince the right talent to come work with you for equity, then you can easily convince customers to pay money to use your product and convince investors to invest, because literally all you're doing here is just showing them the big picture of what their life would look like without you in it, and how their life is going to look like with you in it, and the magnitude of the differences here.
Great. So another question is, what advice would you give someone who wants to become an entrepreneur and haven't had a business ever?
So I think this is my favorite question. And people would say, hey, do what you're passionate about. Charlie, don't do that. Don't do what you're passionate about. Yes. And rather, think about three things. What do you love to do? That's your passion. What are you good at doing? That's your strengths. And what does the market want you to do? That's the market need. You bring these three things together and find the sweet spot between them, which is more like the place where they overlap, and you do that. So you need to put all of them into consideration. What are you passionate about? What are your strengths and what the market needs? That's how you create a business. But if you create a business on what you love to do, people might not care. If you create a business based on what you're good at, people might still not care. And if you create a business based on what the market wants, you might not be good at it or you might not have any interest in it. So you have to put your love, which is your passion, your strengths, and the market together to find a business.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you. So there's another question here. How should I address myself when pitching my idea in a room of investors? I haven't done many things in the past, only this project I'm embarking on, exposing me the need and my personal brand. Yeah.
Well, if you don't have any track record, then you have to explain to them why you're the right person. And the easiest way is, how connected are you to the problem? I've seen so many investors, raise funding, not because of they've built anything, but because they have very close connection to the problem. It's either they've experienced the problem firsthand, themselves, so they have a complete idea about what the problem is, or they have this strong connection with the people who have experienced the problem. Maybe it's their family member, their parents, their community people. So so they have this sentimental attachment to the problem. In whichever the case, if you don't have, a good track record of why you should be the right person because you've done things before in the past, or you've been able to do X, Y, and Z, you should understand the problem well enough and be so connected to it that they believe that you're going to stop at nothing to actually solve it. Maybe because they know that, hey, you want your mother to to experience a better life, and if you solve this problem for the people, you're simultaneously solving the problem for your mother. So it's personal to you to solve the problem, and you know that personal sentiment you have is what's going to drive you to keep at it until you get it done. But you must be very, very closely connected to the problem, personally, or through close family members or loved ones. Yeah.
So that means you're more like saying that when trying to pitch your idea, you need to make sure that you capture your personal fit, like the real thing that connects you and the problem. Makes sense.
Exactly.
Makes sense. Okay, so all right, I think we have come to the end of the webinar, and so the only thing that is left here is I would like you to give some advice to aspiring entrepreneurs who are just starting out and the ones who are still in the valley of death. So personally, I'm still in the valley of death, which is more like the time between when a startup launches and when it manages to break even. So what would you advise, entrepreneurs who are just starting out or the ones that are still in the valley of death? Yes.
Well, it's very simple. Everybody's winging it. Nobody has it all figured out. And so do not look at people and say, hey, this person seems to have it all figured out. Nobody has it all figured out. I don't have it all figured out. I experienced so many downtimes where when I'm completely clueless of what next to do. I experience problems just the way you have. I experience challenges and failures just the way you experience them. We are never above these things. We don't have it all figured out. So you're literally not alone. The people that you admire, the people you look up to, the people that you always ask to mentor you are literally sometimes as clueless as you are. Sometimes they're experiencing things that are completely way above over their heads and they don't still understand it. And sometimes they're just winging it, taking a day at a time as well. Just that they've been lucky or that they've had some things that they've been able to do over the years. And so don't think that someone is better than you. No, literally nobody is better than you. And don't be so pressured to do a great thing. You can just do good things over a long period of time and they all come together to become great. So maybe somebody raised a funding of several thousands of millions of dollars. And hey, you're just raising $500 from your mom. It's fine as well. If you can raise that small money over a period of time consistently, you can literally put them all together and it becomes an ocean. So don't pressure yourself to do great things. As long as you're consistent, you can literally be doing little things over a period of time, over an extended period of time, and you literally be called great eventually. Because when they put everything together, it's great results. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I'm going to quickly copy your or the link to your LinkedIn profile, and I will drop it here so that anyone who wants to, like, follow you and get to still check out your I really enjoy the latest to entrepreneurs. Yeah, like the latest to entrepreneurs makes a whole lot of sense. So thank you very much for creating out time in your busy schedule to you know come here to teach us so many things about how to actually do entrepreneurship and win, because I think this is one of the things that we actually lack in Africa, in Nigeria. If at all we like have lots of mentors, like really lots of mentors that can actually, like literally hold your hand and say, okay, yeah, do it like this, then there's a huge possibility of multiplying, the kind of success that you've had, across different people in Nigeria and Africa. So I want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you very much for all the experiences that you've shared. Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome, and have a great day ahead, everyone. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So I have dropped the link to your profile on LinkedIn. So guys, try and follow Mr. Chidi. Yes, and so you can actually get to learn so many things from him on LinkedIn. Yeah, he shares a lot of beautiful things that can actually help you on your entrepreneurial journey. Mr. Chidi, thank you very much. Do have a great night. Yeah.
You too. Bye bye.
All right. Bye.